Okay, welcome back to another Between the Pages book chat. And today our guest is fantasy author R.G. Long, who's here to talk about his series Legends of Gilead. And now I'm going to turn it over to him and let him introduce himself. So take it away.
Oh, hey, Anita. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast, especially because of summer travel schedules and everything like that. I'm actually in an airport waiting to get onto a flight with my three beautiful kiddos. Legends of Gilead is a fantasy epic book that I wanted to write ever since I was a little kid. I've been writing stories my whole life and decided that, you know what, I'm going to do NaNoWriMo this one time. And that NaNoWriMo turned into the series that I'm doing right now. And I absolutely love it. It's a lot of fun. For me, it's just an exploration of all the storytelling that I always wanted to do when I was a little kid. And so it tells the story of Elrin as he's discovering who he is. And because I was stubborn when I first started writing this book, I said, I want to have 5 big continents where there are this huge world to explore. And for each continent, there's going to be 3 books. And so it's a 15-book series that I'm just about to wrap up and write the very last book in this series here this summer and publish it in July. Looking forward to it.
Okay, there's 15 books in this series?
Yes, there are. The omnibus is books 1 through 9.
Okay, that's ambitious. I applaud you.
I appreciate it. I think someone asked me, how are you doing right now? And I said, I'm currently not deceased by writing all these books. It's been fun, but it's definitely been a big project for sure.
Okay, so give us as much an overview of the series as you can.
Sure. What happens in the series is you're introduced to someone, the main character of the book. His name is Elrin. And because I am not the most creative of sorts, he has amnesia, which people tend to frown upon as a plot point. But give me a break. This is my first fantasy stories I've ever written. And so what I wanted people to do is understand that, like, Elrin wanted to find out who he is and understand who he was. We think you're getting into the picture, Mom. Thank you, please. Like I said, I'm at the airport with my kiddos. And I wanted him to explore the world and figure out, asking this question, who is Elrin? To have him figure out who he is, where he comes from. And because we're seeing it through the eyes of Elrin as well as other people, we get to explore the world as if we're seeing it for the first time. And so it's a lot of Lord of the Rings type fare with orcs and goblins and dwarves and elves and things like that, but also a few of my creatures that are, I guess, it's kind of exclusive to my stories. Some lizards who can camouflage themselves, but are sentient, and some fox-like creatures, kind of like kobolds, who inhabit other parts of the world. It's a lot of fun. It's been a ton of fun to write.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the main character.
Sure. Yarn is someone who's trying to figure out what fate is doing to him. And so asking that question of, am I a good person? Was I a good person before I washed up on this beach? And if I was not a good person, who am I going to be now? And so Yellen's thrust into moral quandaries of trying to figure out who he is, what his purpose on this world is, and as he begins to discover more and more things, to figure out how he feels about certain aspects. When I started writing the books, I not only said every 3 books is going to be a different continent, but every 3 books is going to have a different story arc. So the first book actually deals with the issue of racism, looking at racism as in humanity, because man always has to be the bad guy. We've done this to ourselves. Humanity trying to wipe out elves and dwarves just because they are elves and dwarves. So looking at Elrin's viewpoint on racism in that frame. And then the second book is looking at preserving our environment versus looking at trying to use up the resources in such a way that we no longer have them. The third book looks at whether or not technology is a good thing or something that can take over us, and go from there.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the world. You said there were 5 continents, so it's obviously quite expansive. So
Yes. So there are some continents where it's a mixture of elves and dwarves, and humans and bad guys who inhabit it. But then there are other continents where it's predominantly elves, and the other groups that live there at their pleasure. Another continent where it's predominantly dwarves, and then as far as all that goes, each continent kind of has, like I said, its own flavor. One's a whole jungle. One is more Lord of the Rings vibe. It's all kind of grassy plains. Another one's more desert and expansive desert and things like that. So yeah, my goal was I wanted to write as much about the world as I possibly could and give readers a taste of how big this world could possibly be. Because I do plan to, as crazy as it sounds, keep writing when I'm done with these 15 books.
Okay, so I'm assuming that there's multiple antagonists through the series, or do you have like a big bad going through the whole thing?
There's a big bad in that there's a type of bad going through the whole book. You're introduced to some of the bad guys in the first one, but yeah, each story arc, each 3-book arc has its kind of minor bad guy who takes up most of the story of those three bads. But there are demons who are within the workings of the world and doing things within the world that we see. And throughout the books, there are comets. There's a big comet up in the sky that is ominous, and that's where the demons come from. And as people read through the books, they see how the demons have been working throughout the history of the world and what's been going on too. And there's a pretty big reveal that happens in, book 13. I have to get my own numbers right. Book 13 that I was really excited about because the question was that I wanted readers doing this whole time was asking, who is Yelrin? But once they get to book 13, there comes a different question of who is someone else. And I'm going to withhold that one because it's the whole point of the series. And it's a lot of fun. For me, it was a total blast to get to that point. And so, yeah, that's a bit about that. So Big Bad, yes, there is one, but it's lurking.
Okay, so one of our viewers thinks it sounds interesting, so that's
Thanks.
always
Thank
promising. Anyway, so what was the hardest scene or type of scene for you to write in the series?
I get accused of like killing off characters, haphazardly or just like without remorse. Someone once called me R.R. Martin. It's like, come on, that's not fair. Like, so I have favorite characters as well. And it's not all told through the lens of the main character, Elrin. You actually get to see very different characters and different lenses of different people. And so after I've been writing through the eyes of one of these characters for several times, having to write the scene where I know they're going to be killed off is really tough. And so that's really hard for me to write. And so anytime where there's a character death of someone who I don't want to die, but needs to die so that the story can keep going, that's always really hard. But it's one of those things that I know it has to happen for the story.
Yeah, well, we don't judge character deaths on this podcast. I write horror, so yeah, I kill off a lot of characters. So.
Oh, it hurts so bad. I don't like it.
No. You either fall in two camps on here. You mourn your characters or you kill them off with glee. So I'm in the kill them off with glee camp.
Yeah, I definitely mourn them.
Okay, so what was your favorite scene or type of scene to write in the series?
My favorite type of scene to write when I'm in these series is to write the scene where Elrin gets to figure out a little bit about who he is and figures out that he is doing what he feels is right. Because I love the idea that there is something going on between all of us of figuring out what is our moral code, where do we get this moral code, who decides what is right and what is wrong. And so when Elrin gets to say, I'm doing this because it is the right thing to do. It's not the safest thing to do. It's not the most sensible thing to do. And it might even be the most dangerous possible outcome, but it is the right thing to do. So scenes where he has those moments of clarity are really fun for me. I really enjoy them.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your secondary characters. Are anything a little quirky, like to steal scenes?
Sure. Oh, of course. Just like my children like to steal scenes. Hi, children.
Hi, children.
All right. Yep. Um, can you let me keep talking and sit here at the same time? That's a no. Okay. um, so the characters who I love the most are characters. Oh, apparently we've got people doing interview with me. Great. The characters who I like to write the most with this are Bloom. She is our magic character who helps out with this. She's the one who, and this is the one here who has read the most of my stories. Oh, can't hear. So Bloom Bloom is the one who gets to steal the show a lot because while Eowyn gets to do what's right and enjoys doing what's right, Bloom likes to cause trouble. And so it's really fun to write Bloom stories because she's the one who's going, I'm going to do the reckless thing, and I'm going to do the thing that does seem right, but also seems most reckless. Ruthie, when you lay it on like that, you get in front of the microphone, and it's hard for them to hear. Thank you, baby. And so Bloom is fun to write, but also so is Tori. And in the first 3 books, Tori's job is just to complain as much as humanly possible. And when I was writing his character, that was his story arc. Is, you know what? I need someone who just complains the whole time. And that's Tori. And he's just a ton of fun to write because I want to put through his viewpoint, his eyes, who is going to be the voice of saying, this is not fun. And I do not enjoy this fantasy adventure that we're on. And that's Tori. He's a blast to write.
And to read.
Thank you.
Spontaneous endorsement. Yay.
Hey, as long as my kids are enjoying my books, I feel like I'm doing okay.
So do you have a favorite character and it is acceptable to say no?
I think it's hard to say that I like Eowyn because Eowyn is the main character, but I feel like saying your main character is your favorite character is kind of a cop-out. Maybe that's just me personally. So Eowyn's fun, but really, I think Bloom is my favorite. Obviously, I love girls. I have 3 of them, and so when I'm writing Bloom, I feel like I'm writing and trying to write what I want my daughters to be. You know, to be bold, to be reckless, to do the right thing. And so I think it's okay for me to say that Bloom is my favorite character.
Okay, so what are your characters afraid of?
Eowyn's afraid of losing his friends, and so even though he knows that he's doing the right thing, he's afraid of loss. And that's what the last 3 books are. The last 3 books are trying to figure out how to cope with some really big losses that Eowyn has gone through. And again, I'm writing that from experience, how to cope with loss. Because in my own personal life, I've lost a lot. My father passed away 12 years ago. My older brother passed away a year ago this week. I've had, all of my 4 grandparents now pass away, and so loss is something that I've dealt with personally in my own life. And so when I'm writing books and things like that, I'm trying to deal with what that loss looks like and how my characters might deal with that. So yeah.
Okay, so obviously you write fantasy, but are there any other genres that you'd like to explore in future?
I have written a dystopian trilogy called Enter the Dark, based on what would happen if the power went out.
It's good.
Oh, another glowing endorsement. Fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to write and kind of have a side project for a moment. I've had some other friends tell me that, like, oh, please write more in this in the Dark series. I'm like, you know what? I would love to do something like that eventually, but I still got a 15-book series I got to finish up. So, yeah. So working on my dystopian series may happen in the future when I need another side project. But for right now, that was a lot of fun to write when I wrote it.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here, and I'll let you tell everyone where they can find you and your books.
Oh, fantastic. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook at rglongauthor. I'm at all of those things. And you can find my website at rglongauthor.com. And so that's where all of my stuff is. And for you to subscribe, if you go to rglongauthor.com, there's a free book that you can get. It's a prequel to the 15-book series, kind of sets up a little bit the first trilogy, and you get it free for subscribing to my newsletter. So I hope you would do that.
Okay, great. And you can find a link to the series in the description below, and just be sure to check it out. If not, only for the gorgeous covers, because the covers of those books are gorgeous.
Covers by Christian, an absolute rock star. Love him, fantastic artist. And I would say everyone should go and use him for their covers, but I hope they don't, because then I won't get a get a slot in anymore. But he's a fantastic cover artist, and yes, he definitely did my stories justice, and more so.
Okay, so thank you for being here. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Anita, thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Okay.
Say bye, ladies.
And,
Bye.
bye. And we'll be
Ruthie
back
is down
next
there.
weekend with
She's this hand.
more authors. And so that's all for now. Bye.
Up near his face.
Bye.